What is going on, my friends? Good morning, or good evening, depending on when and where you're listening to this episode. I'm with my buddy Taylor Welch here, and this is another episode of TWC Talks podcast, where we dig into the brain, the entrepreneurial brain, psyche, the subconscious, and all good things revolving around redefining wealth. Taylor, what's going on, man? How are you today?
Bro, I'm freezing cold.
Oof, okay.
But other than that, pretty good. So I woke up this morning and I decided, it's 25 degrees outside. What could be better than it being 25 degrees? It could be sitting in a cold plunge in the 25 degree weather.
Like, why not?
So
like, that's the first thing.
I put in my clothes like an adult. I made decisions like an adult. I woke up, I got out of my house, and I decided through the force of willpower to sit in this cold plunge and suffer. And it was one of the best decisions of my life. I'm still cold, but it's okay. Say a prayer for me. And here we are. Mind over matter. That's what I say.
Okay. Well, maybe that should be the topic. How the hell do you get yourself into a cold bath on a cold day at 5 a.m? That's a notable win on anybody's radar.
Yeah, there's something to be said for getting yourself past the hump of doing something you don't want to do. This isn't about cold plunging, but there's a guy on the team. He texted me yesterday. He was like, "Hey man, let's raise our standards." He's like, "What if we worked out every morning at 5 a.m.?" And I said, "Okay." And he was like, "Wait a minute. I didn't think you were going to say okay." I was
called his bluff. He's like, "Oh no."
Yeah. He was like, "I need to think about it." I said, No, we good. Let's do it. You offered it. We're going. Let's go for it. And I texted my wife and said, "Hey, for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing 5 a.m. workouts." And she said, "You don't really like morning workouts. Are you sure you're going to want to do that?" And I said, "I will do whatever I need to do to make sure the voice in my head is the dominant voice. My voice." There's something crazy about this where it's like there's so many voices vying for attention and we're distracted by this person and that person. It's like, what about your voice? Sometimes the fastest way to get your voice up to the top is just find something hard to do and commit to doing it. I'm just saying, people don't like that advice, but it is what is true.
So true. And that's a muscle too that you work through. Like, you do it once and the next time it's a little bit easier to do again, and you get used to actually pushing past that mental barrier. But if you don't, the wall gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And for me, I don't know about you, man, but if I don't push through that wall in any kind of regularity, man, it gets strong pretty quick. I default to getting comfortable again real quick.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, real quick before we dive in today, if you're watching this live, we're beginning to stream these to the resource group. So if you're listening to this on the podcast and you would like to join that group, you can go to Facebook. So a little app, maybe you've heard of it before, and you can search for The Wealthy Consultant and join that group. And then we can have interactions and engagements there. With that said, Mike, what are we talking about today? Let's rock.
Yeah, the idea, the thing that just kind of keeps revisiting my brain, and it actually hit me this morning when I was out on a run at 5:30 this morning, was the need, or the perceived need, to get permission to find our new level. If we've never done something before or we've never reached this particular pinnacle, there seems to be a mental glass ceiling that a lot of the clients that we work with have. And it's almost like it takes you, I, or just the collective, consciousness of the group to like, no, you got this, you can push through it, and kind of getting this confidence and drive from other people that have either been there, done that already, or just collectively, again, builds the confidence. I don't know what it is. It's hard for me to articulate, but it keeps coming up in conversations. And so I wanted to kind of pull on this string a little bit to see if you and I could unlock it and maybe hopefully help others that are out there. Obviously we go into the end of the year, people start naturally thinking about what's next, what's 2024 going to look like, all these things. So wanted to kind of see what we could dig up here.
Yeah, there's a great quote by a guy named Gay Hendricks, who's got a PhD, and he wrote a book called The Big Leap. And The Big Leap is a phenomenal book. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. And the quote is this: while you were talking, I just pulled it up. He said, "In my life," this is him speaking, "in my life, I've discovered that if I cling to the notion that something is not possible, I am arguing in favor of a limitation. And if I argue for my limitations, I get to keep them." And when I read this, I was like, oh, okay. It really is less about, and I posted about this a few weeks ago. I was having just a moment because I'll sit sometimes, and some people like pray to God, and I tend to argue with God, and maybe it speaks to my lower level of intelligence because, sometimes I feel like when I'm having corrective moments and there are lessons that I'm trying to learn, in my infinite wisdom, I'm like, well, I shouldn't have to go through this to learn this lesson. And so I'll never forget having this challenging conversation with God while at the gym. This was a year and a half ago at this point. And I was like, you haven't protected me. I've been completely reset, basically eliminated. You're just basically going off. And by the way, God can handle that. There are moments when it's like some of the best conversations you probably ever had with the people that you care about started by being like, yo, I just need to be honest with you. I don't really like you right now. Like I think you've done this, and it's health that comes on the other side of confrontation. And so
Absolutely.
I remember God going like, I'm repositioning you because you got off track, and to do that, it's going to feel like regression. And I was like, oh, got it. It makes sense. Like, we have these moments where we'll move and we get off track, and God in his kindness will like reset us back to a place where we deviated and kind of get. And so the moment that I realized that I had been adversarial towards my helper, and I had been adversarial towards someone who was trying to help me. And this happens all the time with our own selves. Like the conversation we had yesterday, we had a group of clients, like, your mind is not trying to hurt you. The insecurity is not there to hurt you. Like if you've ever dealt with imposter syndrome, imposter syndrome is your mind's way of trying to protect you, the real you, from rejection. And so your mind is saying like, look, I'm going to protect you from rejection, and we're going to show a faulty image of yourself to the world. That way, if it's rejected, it's not real to you. And so we're adversarial against the things that are actually there to help us. And sometimes the key is realizing that it's not our plan that is required. It's our permission that is required to let ourselves move into a new level, a new season. And for some people who are like, well, this isn't about consulting. This isn't about marketing. This is about living. So this is like the actual foundational mechanics of how you live your life and operate day to day. And I think that too many people are hustling and grinding because they feel like they have to. They haven't given themselves permission to just, what's the difference between winning a prize and inheriting a prize? Well, there's a massive difference in these two. One, you're winning something, you're racing towards achievement. The other, you're inheriting something that was already given to you. And when you get really good at this level, it's a quantum level, it's a different level of spirituality and winning and movement. You realize that everything you want, you ultimately have already been given. You just have to accept it. And there are some people who don't understand how to do that, and we have to go through the process of teaching them how to do that. I'm a little bit off track of your original question, but you got me thinking.
But that's the whole thing. I want to pull on this string and kind of see where it led. I mean, I've had this thing come up, and I've said this. It was definitely something I dealt with for years. I've been in the space a long time, over doing a lot of different things. And I kept getting revisited with the concept that it really didn't matter how fast or hard I was trying to paddle, if you will, or run or whatever. I always kind of got to the next level at the same time. And it was really interesting that it wasn't a matter of effort. It was a matter of just the right timing. And there were some times when I just said, screw it, I don't care. I'm just going to like take a day as it comes type thing. And, still obviously wake up and get my ass out of bed, of course, but not do and grind, like you said, no sleep club and grind and I'll sleep when I die, that attitude versus just methodically working through something at a cadence that was repeatable and sustainable. And it was really interesting. I kept getting hit with that reality that whole grind, sprint, sleep when you die attitude never got me any farther than if I just trusted, to your point, inherit the fact that I've already had those things and you just need to align with it.
It's all in our programming. We're raised with it. And this has happened. I don't know how many times you've seen us do this on calls, either in a one-on-one setting or in a workshop setting, like with Belief Architecture a couple of weeks ago. But it's always something that was programmed in us, usually from a long time ago. And I'll use this example from yesterday, and there's no names or anything, so nobody will know what we're talking about, which is how it should be. But there was somebody who they had a moment when they were younger where they got into some debt, and
Yeah.
they wanted somebody close to them to kind of bail them out. And it's like, I wish that this person would just bail me out because I know they have the money. This was many years ago, decades ago. And then when you look at the pattern of their lives now, what does bailout mean? Just enough. It's like you are paying up to the fine or up to the debt limit, and you're just enough. Never more than enough, but just enough. And you can see this person, how every new client they get, they're treating it, this is a just in time, just enough bailout. And so their whole orientation is around like, I need this much, and so I need to go at the 11th hour, I need to get this in just enough to cover. And so it's creating this pattern of bailout rather than surplus. Being bailed out and creating excess and surplus and abundance, very different ideals. So even something from childhood, and I've got my own stuff. In fact, there's something right now going on. We haven't talked about this, but there's something right now where me and Gabrielle were literally talking about it a couple days ago, where I said, I need you to hold me accountable here, because I've spent my life in a pattern so long of something happening that I will accidentally, I will recreate it because I'm expecting it. And so if you see me start hedging towards a problem that does not exist yet, just call me on it, because what I'm doing is through trying to prevent a non-existent problem, I'm creating the problem so that I can then go fix it. And we have these everywhere. You know what's really, really, really difficult to see in ourselves? Our assumptions and our values that were programmed as kids. And so oftentimes you need someone else to say, hey, why are you operating this way? And just talk to me. And inside those conversations, and you saw it happen yesterday, it was like, boom, boom, boom. There are 3 values here that are driving behavior, and those behaviors are keeping you locked up. And it's not a choice that you're making. It's just a byproduct of something that happened a long time ago. We talked deeply about this in the arena on Monday. We talked about how the mind will continue looping you because it wants to protect you. And so there's a lot of different places we talk deeply about this. People enjoying the arena, hop into chamber, whatever. But it is probably every single client we've ever worked with that is at some level or another wrestled with this.
100%, man. I mean, how many times have we been on onboarding calls with new chamber members, and what's on their worksheet, right? It's like a revenue number or some, goal or objective they have for the business. And we're like, whoa, wait, what's going on between the ears first? Like, we need to go fundamental and foundational first before we go start stacking more things on top. And we spend to like what you just said, we spend so much effort or focus, I should say, towards what's going on in between the ears of the entrepreneur first. And then all of a sudden, all these other things are all, well, hang on, why am I even going after that particular goal? Or, all of a sudden that benchmark, that just make it goal that they're trying to shoot for, all of a sudden seems extremely arbitrary or too low or whatnot. It's really, really interesting. I love what we do in that area. It's just fascinating. You're obviously really good at uncovering it too. So it makes for a great time. And I know everybody loves it. I mean, yesterday's call, man, people were just like, the chat feed just blew up, when we started getting into it, and just, they were so grateful to have that transparency and the vulnerability that member showed was just really well received. You could tell that, again, to my point at the top of this session here, it's something that keeps coming up. That was not a one-off experience that person was having. It's shared by basically everybody.
Yeah. Nor is it only the client or the member that wrestles with that. And vulnerability, I think our communities are vulnerable because we are vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Like, it reflects I will stand in front of a room of people and tell people where I failed. And I fail all the time. Like, for the record, like, it's easy for me to go, hey, you have this belief here, we should fix it. But the reality is that I have been riddled my entire life with fear. And my entire career has been filled with anxiety. Well, that's weird for people to hear. And they're like, whoa, what? Like, why? You $100 million later and you're still wrestling with, oh yeah, like it's not something that, you ever fully I just never wrestle with it anymore. Every once in a while, the mind is like an operating system. And so, an iPhone has updates. If it did not, it would be weird.
Yep.
Because as life advances and technology advances, the hardware updates and the software updates. And so with the mind, it's like, I'm going to have these moments of software updates. And the more self-aware you are, here's the glitch. The glitch that happens is like the more self-aware a person is, the more they will notice their own struggle. Mm. And so if you don't ever notice yourself struggling and you're like, well, I never have fear. Okay, well, what you're really telling me is that you have such a low self-awareness level that you don't understand where your mind is actually reeling. And I think that with me and with the people that are in our tribe, it's like, look, it's better to be honest about it. It's like, because I'm aware of it, I'm really wrestling with this thing right here. Can we have a conversation about how to get through it? And that vulnerability is really the secret to fixing anything. You can't fix anything if you're entrenched in this little weird facade of your own making. Mm-hmm. So props to you and props to Gabe's and the whole team, because I think we make it really easy for people to just be like, yeah, I'm doing really well. Here's my mess. And this person in particular, they were like, I feel poor. And we compared their income from like 8 years ago, and they have a 66x multiple on their income this year versus 8 years ago. And it's like, it's all programming. It's not real. It's all programming. And you wrestle with it. I wrestle with it. We all wrestle with it. That's why we do these things. Like if you go to taylorawelch.com/anchor, ANCOR, we're doing a full day training. And by the way, we'll put the replay at this link so you can attend it as well. But we do these things that are free and they don't cost anything, because we're like, how do we invest into how people think and how people process information? Arena is another good example of that. A portion of Arena is free. Then we have the private events on Mondays and Fridays. Chamber, we go into all different things. So we're trying to tackle this realm of the mind where like people are their own worst enemy. And if we can create alliances between people and themselves, that's a weird thing to say. Ooh. But it's the way that progress happens.
Yep.
If we can take your adversarial relationship with yourself and turn it into an alliance, everything gets easier at the same time, effortless. And it just requires a little bit of training.
Beautifully said, man. Beautifully said. Yeah. I think that's we can end on that one, man. That was a banger right there. I love that. I mean, that's the reality, guys, is so much starts with us internally first. Yes, the goals, the big dreams, the things that we aspire to in both in business and life are absolutely valid and good. But we got to know what we're building on, and we can't be building on sand, So
100%.
We got to make stronger foundations. Yeah. Love that, man. Hey, thanks for jamming with me on this one. I knew it was a little bit kind of esoteric and out there and macro, but it was a common thing that kept coming up, and I wanted to revisit it. So thanks for pulling on the string with me, man. The proverbial string.
Got you, bro. I got you. Adios, everyone. See ya.
See you guys. Take care.